shaking very violently. The engine was starting to really come apart on it. I live in the Chicago area, in Chicago, and fly out of Chicago Executive Airport, also known as Pewaukee. I flew a number of years ago to my hometown of Dubuque, Iowa, and went to a concert. The concert ran a little late. There was some thunderstorms in the area. I waited those thunderstorms out and started heading back to Chicago, which is about a 200 nautical mile flight. It was around midnight that I took off. Being at night, I was alone in the aircraft. I generally will try to fly a little bit higher, get a little added safety margin, be smart about things. So I'm flying eastbound, and about halfway to Chicago, I started hearing things. And it's one of those things where, am I actually hearing it, or am I just tired? Is my headset, is my A&R going out? Well, it's probably not anything real. And then as I went on a little further, I noticed the RPM going down just little bit by little bit. I was like, this isn't right. Thought, well, maybe some carb ice. Tried to clear things up, no go. And I immediately turned to the closest airport, which was Freeport. And I was talking to ATC at the time because I typically, if I'm at night flying alone like that, I'll pick up flight following. So I was near Rockford, but not as close. My nearest airport was a town called Freeport. And I immediately turned, contacted ATC, said I'm having some type of engine trouble, but I'm not quite sure yet. And I stayed with them. As I got closer and closer to Freeport, the RPM was going down much more significantly. And I wasn't sure I was going to make it to an airport. So engine out at night, you start to have the thoughts of where can I put it. I've driven the road back and forth there a lot. There's power lines everywhere. It's a terrible spot for that. So obviously there's a lot of farm fields in this area, but at night, not a lot of great options, not great visibility on anything. So I was pretty committed to trying to get back and make an airport. Power didn't shut completely off, but it was getting very, very low. I contacted ATC again, said I'm switching frequency, try to turn on pilot controlled lighting. I got that clicked on and started coming into a straight in approach. It was just had enough altitude, I thought, to probably make it. But once I clicked the lights on, I saw it was pretty high, and I really had to slip that thing down. And as I was in that final approach, the aircraft was shaking very violently. The engine was starting to really come apart on it, and I squeaked it onto the runway and tried to taxi off, and it died on the runway. So I got out and I pushed the airplane off the runway and called the maintenance shop and said, hey, there's an airplane stuck in the taxiway here. Can we get it checked out? And as I opened up, it's maybe 1 or 2 a.m. now. As I opened it up, it was pretty clear one of the cylinders had cracked on it. It was very lucky that I didn't try to make Rockford, try to make probably a bigger airport that would have been manned at the time. There's no way I would have made it. So it was, couple good decisions. I don't always make good decisions in an aircraft, but one was I flew 2,000 foot higher than I typically would just because it was at night. And the second was I immediately turned as soon as I had kind of an inkling that something was wrong. So that was a good feeling in retrospect. I made a couple good decisions, got it down onto the runway. The bad decision I might have made was it was a rental aircraft. And in retrospect, I don't trust rental aircraft quite as much as I used to, or I trust places that I know have really good maintenance. I probably pay more attention to the aircraft maintenance. Turns out that this cylinder had an airworthiness directive on it, but it was one of those where you could replace it after a certain number of hours. And as a rental aircraft, they typically won't just proactively replace it. They're going to wait until the last minute, and that's what happened. So, I prefer aircraft now that have maybe a few dollars more to rent, but a little better maintenance on them, and I haven't had any such problems ever since.